Good morning, class. This is Tim Tomlanovich. Hope you're all doing well. This is Water Technology. Let's talk about Learning Plan 7, Chapter 4, Water Quality. So I just want to introduce you to this topic, just to be so you're familiar with it. So when you're dealing with, there's potentials you could be working for a wastewater treatment plant, or just understanding water quality, because there's a lot of stormwater inspection issues that go on with this, so you understand why this is so important about water quality. Okay, so we'll start with a slideshow here, and then I'll go over the assignment, and then basically this will be it. This is a short one, so fairly short. Okay, water quality. Okay, let's talk about concentration units. Okay, I'm not going to make you a chemist here, but it's just so units of measure here. So milligram per liter. Get my laser pointer out here. Milligram per liter equals milligrams, or milli is 1,000, is 0.001 grams. So 1, 2, 3, or 1 times 10 to the minus 3 per liter. Per liter. Milligrams per liter, concentration of units. Okay, micrograms. So that's 6 decimal places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So micrograms, that's the mu per liter. Okay, so these are concentrations of chemicals or contaminants in our water. This is how we measure it. Okay, so if I look at this, if I take a square foot or a square liter of water, okay, which concentration is bigger? Is it milligrams? So if I have 1 milligram per liter or 1 microgram per liter, which has a stronger chemical concentration? If you think about that, if I have the same size of water. So actually, we can draw a little picture here. Okay, so here's my 1 liter of water. So I have 2 of the same size, liters of water. Okay. Okay, so now this is 1 milligram per liter. Okay. And then let's go over here. This is going to be 1 microgram per liter. Okay. So in relation, this has a higher concentration because it's a bigger unit. It weighs more. That's what you think about. Okay. Okay. So, all right. All right. So basically now we have parts per million, ppm. Okay. So 1 part per million equals 1 milligram per liter. Okay. 1 part. So everybody hears parts per million of air contaminants, water contaminants. So when you get your water report every year from the city, whichever city or village, if you have a city water supply, not a well, they tell you there's a certain amount of parts per million that concentration that can have. So, and it gives you a report to tell you that they're meeting the required contaminant levels based on the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. So 1 part per million equals 1 milligram per liter. And then ppb, parts per billion. Okay, can you guess what that means? That equals 1 microgram per liter. Okay, so this is a very small amount, very small contaminant. So this is a very tight tolerance. So something like lead, etc., has a very small part per billion. So the concentration is a lot smaller. Okay. Flow units, megaliters per day. Megaliters per day. So 1 equals 1 million liters per day. Okay. So when you look at wastewater discharge, okay, it's usually in megaliters per day, okay, or gallons per day. or million gallons per day. Okay, so if you think at the new wastewater treatment plant here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, I did have a field trip set up for that, which is unfortunate we had to cancel because of our situation this year, but they'd go over this. So think about how many gallons per day that they are treating before it releases back into the Bay of Green Bay. Million gallons per day. All right. Parameters of water quality. Dissolved oxygen. They call it DO. Dissolved oxygen. Okay. Oxygen is the basic lifeline of organisms. Humans, fish, contaminants, everything. DO. Dissolved oxygen. Okay. Is the amount of dissolved oxygen in water. Okay. So when fish start dying in a lake, that means their dissolved oxygen is being reduced. Okay. So what causes that? Contaminants will actually eat dissolved oxygen. Okay. So DO is needed by organisms in water to break down organic waste. So this is what they use in wastewater treatment plants. And the last presentation is about wastewater treatment plants. So we need, that's the food. Okay, the dissolved oxygen is the food for organisms so they can survive, so they can break down waste. Especially like even in rivers and stuff, we need good bacteria, good organisms to break down that organism so our water stays clean. Okay. So biochemical oxygen demand, BOD, biochemical oxygen demand. What is that? Okay. As organisms use organic substances for food, contaminants, organic substances, contaminants, they consume oxygen and release CO2 and water, carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so they consume oxygen, or so if it's in water, they consume dissolved oxygen. So if the dissolved oxygen drops, organisms will not break down the contaminants. Okay, they'll die off. But when they do break down contaminants, and when there's plenty of dissolved oxygen or oxygen, they will release CO2 and water. BOT, biochemical oxygen demand, BOD. Okay. So if the O is not replenished, then the dissolved oxygen will decrease. Obviously, if this goes down, the dissolved oxygen will go down. That's what I was saying. So basically what BOD is, in a nutshell, BOD is the demand for oxygen. Okay, I kind of have a YouTube video here. Okay, I got here, kind of like this guy. Remember the old game Pac-Man here? Okay, this is an organism, all right, and they're eating up the organisms. The little dots are the organisms, right? So as he's eating, the big power balls, that's the oxygen, that's the dissolved oxygen. So he needs to eat that to keep going, to eat the organism. So the dots, these are all the little organisms, and these, so I don't know, it's kind of a neat little analogy, I thought. So the little Pac-Man is trying to eat all the contaminants in the water, and every time the dots go away, he's sucking up the oxygen. Okay, so to get it back, he has to get the power pellet before he gets eating. Okay. I forget the names of the Inky, Blinky, Dinky, and Clyde, I think it is. So, I don't know. Just wanted to make something fun here just to show you. So, Pac-Man is an organism eating up the oxygen in the water. And then the power pellets help him keep going. That's the... Okay. So, make something interesting for once, huh? All right, from current slide. Okay, so BOD. Okay, BOD is the demand for oxygen. Okay. All right, BODL. So a little subscript L here. get my PowerPoint out here, is the amount of dissolved oxygen used by the microbes in L days to completely decompose organic substances in the water at 20 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this is all chemistry. So when you think about that Pac-Man, right? So it's basically how many days does it take him to eat all the dots? Okay, and then the big power pellets, those are the DO that's put back in there so he can keep going to eat all the DO. Okay, this amount of DO used by microbes. So DO is the food for BOD. These are the organisms. Dissolved oxygen is the food for biochemical oxygen demand to completely decompose organic substances in 20 days. So they can figure that out. Okay, so this is important in wastewater treatment plant. The more organic material there is, the water, the higher the BOD. So basically, more contaminants, the more BODs. Okay, those are the little Pac-Mans. Okay. Okay. So the strength of sewage, wastewater, is measured by the BOD. Okay. Biochemical oxygen demand, BOD. Strength of sewage is measured by BOD. Okay. Total. Okay. All right, so now we know about BODs. Okay, so if we start seeing BODs like in discharge from, like, say up in Kewaunee County or somewhere where there's a lot of farm runoff, and they'll start finding BODs in the streams because of the runoff from the waste from cattle. So another parameter, total dissolved solids, TDS. Okay, so everybody. So what happens when we boil when you pull water out of the tap and it hasn't been purified? We get that little ring of substance around your inside of your pot. Those are the dissolved solids. Okay, that's actually silt and clay particles, believe it or not, that we're actually drinking in our water. So they have to limit the amount of total dissolved solids in there. So if we start seeing a lot of solids, okay, which and sometimes you see a lot of them, like when a rainy day. Okay, so some of the solids will be dissolved, but and then the water starts getting cloudy. Okay, so solids that remain after evaporation of filtered water, just like that pot example I was talking about. Okay, TDS may cause taste, hardness, corrosion, and aesthetic problems. So iron, okay, depending where we are, how deep your well is. So that's why there's a lot of water softeners to help eliminate some of these total dissolved solids. So the house that I grew up in, our water had a lot of iron from the well, so we had a lot of total dissolved solids. Our sinks were turning orange. Our laundry was turning orange from the iron minerals from the bedrock. So we had to get a water softener to get rid of the dissolved iron minerals in the water. Okay. Total suspended solids. So this is more when they're actually suspended, okay? All right. Solids remaining on a filter for a given amount of water. So basically, I'm thinking of this as coffee. Coffee. So when you have a coffee pot, right? You put the coffee grounds in the filter, in the bottom of the filter, and you get those suspended solids in your coffee. So those are suspended solids. That kind of works the same for any kind of filtration system. It'll get through the filtration system. So you got those little fine coffee grounds sitting on the bottom of your coffee pot, and the last cup is always really gritty, grainy, right? Those are total suspended solids. So we can't have any of those. Okay, so those are the visible ones. So they're composed of volatile, which can be burned off, and fixed solids, which can't be burned off. Okay, so this is important in wastewater treatment plant, right? So what they do is they want to burn these off and create energy with them because they're volatile. They can burn them. Okay. The ones that can't be burned off and turned into energy, they have to be landfilled. So those are fixed solids. They can't be burned off. So there's always waste from a wastewater treatment plant. But they're trying I wish we could go to the wastewater treatment plant because they have a new system there that actually is able to use this as fuel to keep running the wastewater treatment plant. Okay, nitrogen. There's nitrogen in water. Exists as ammonia, nitrate, nitrite, and organic nitrogen from when things decompose. Okay. All right, ammonia, sewage, is it toxic to fish? Okay, nitrogen. All right. Nitrates are plant nutrients, fertilizers in excess cause algae blooms. So we all heard about that in lower Michigan. I think it was at Lake Erie or Lake Huron, or in small private lakes. Due to the fertilizers people put in the yard, we get algae blooms in the summer. Okay, that's from the nitrates, from the nitrogen. Okay, phosphorus is also another plant nutrient. Okay, so this is very prevalent in Green Bay because of our farming community. Okay, primary sources is detergent, but also originates from fertilizers and animal waste. Okay, fertilizers and animal waste. Phosphorus is another parameter of water quality. Okay, fecal coliforms. Okay, non-pathogenic bacteria such as, everybody heard of E. coli, found in the intestinal tract of warm-blooded animals. Okay, they are indicator of possible presence of sewage pollution. So BODs, okay, is a E. coli is a bacteria which is a they need biochemical oxygen demand, right? So Milwaukee, when the wastewater treatment plant gets flooded due to floodwaters, they have to release a lot of this into Lake Michigan. So that's why they have to close the beaches. So now they're creating storage tunnels to help eliminate that. So this is prevalent in farming areas, streams. If E. coli are present in the water, BODs, fecal, where we have a presence of sewage, okay, which is not good. All right. So basically, here's your homework. So read chapter 4. So work on these questions just so you understand the units. And then the main assignment here is what you're going to turn in is the Flint, Michigan research paper. I think a lot of people over the years have found this out. So let me go on Blackboard. Okay. All right. So Flint, Michigan research paper. All right. So review the following sources. Nathanson text, your textbook, chapter 6, websites identified in the textbook, EPA, Department of Health, other websites, okay? Prepare a paper thoroughly discussing the following key concepts. What was the cause of the water contamination? So Flint, Michigan, so let me go back. Flint, Michigan water research paper, okay? So we all heard about that, I think it's 4 years ago now, 5 years ago, that they had lead in their pipes. So it's a very interesting paper to understand water quality, and I'm pulling ethics into it at the same time, okay? So basically I want you to write a paper, grammar, spelling, proper referencing. What was the cause of the water contamination? Where did it come from? What is the source of the contaminant? How does the contaminant affect the public health? Identify the maximum concentration of contaminant that is allowed in the water supply based on regulations in Michigan. What level of concentrations of contaminant was found in the water supply? So basically, I want you to answer these questions in your paper. All right. So it should be in paragraph format. Okay. Paragraphs reference properly. If you're wondering how to reference a paper, the library is a great resource. You just go on there and they can show you how to reference properly. Because remember, you can't just copy, you got to reference properly. So, who, person, city government, was responsible for the contamination of water supply? Okay, and then, which ASCE Code of Ethics does this violate? Be specific and list the canon's numbers and describe how the canon was violated. Okay, so this is key. This is where you got to, so where do I find the canons? So if I look here, basically, I want you to go through these canons, right? And to identify which canon did they violate and be specific and quote these in your paper, okay? Look through there. What ethics were violated based on that, okay? So there's no right answer, but I want you to thoroughly discuss it. Write down the ethics, canon 1, say canon 1C, quote this and explain why to me, okay? Explain why to me, okay? And then What immediate steps were taken to protect the public? What is the proposed long-term solution to fix the problem? So as the years go by, this keeps going and going. They actually have convicted a couple people because of this. So it'd be interesting to read these and see what people find about this, okay? All right. Paper referencing and formatting. The paper should be prepared, formatted in general accordance with MLA guidelines, including citations and references. No abstract is necessary. See the following links to help with this. Okay, so if you look here, go to the library, it tells you. Papers should be well referenced with all references cited, inline, and listed in the reference section. Do not plagiarize. Put it in your own words unless it absolutely cannot be said in any other way. Then quote the author properly using MLA. I don't care which, if you use MLA or whatever, whichever one, as long as it's referenced properly. Okay, so that's the paper. I think you'll find this very interesting, talking about water quality. Okay, so when you write that, do it in Word document, please. Okay, and then please, and put it there. Okay, so when is this due? I don't think it's due for a while. Let's take a look. This thing is due date, not to May 5th. So now you can get going on it if you want. Okay, so I have a rubric there, so you can see how I'm grading it. Okay, so with that, that is the end of this presentation.